A mystery revolving around multiple personalities and heart-shattering trauma. That's what Sofia in Exchange for Lies provides. It's a visual novel-like experience that has you prying into this young girl's mind. The game will have you connecting the dots, peeling through layers of stories, and deciphering who you can trust. Sofia in Exchange for Lies is an interesting premise, but does it deliver an enjoyable gaming experience? Well, let's find out. The game has you playing as a psychiatrist named Philip. You have been contacted by investigators to help solve the mystery surrounding the assassination of a presidential candidate. Their prime suspect, a young girl named Sofia. Talking to Sofia, you quickly learn that there's more to her than meets the eye. She has dissociative identity disorder, which manifests in her having 5 different personalities, each with their own autonomy, identities, and memories. The kicker? One of them is the killer. Your job is to find out who. Time is of the essence, as Sofia will be sentenced to death if you don't figure out the real killer. But who knows? Maybe she really is guilty. The story is the beating heart of Sofia in Exchange for Lies. It opens with a hell of a mystery and keeps you hooked, curious, and guessing what truth you'll uncover next. There's a certain gravity to the setup that immediately pulls you in. Sofia and her 4 other personalities are all unique and each carries their own secrets to unpack. Sofia in Exchange for Lies places Sofia's dissociative identity disorder front and center, not as a gimmick but as the heart of its mystery. The alters, distinct, fully realized personalities, aren't just storytelling tools. They are the story. They each formed for a reason, each one rooted in trauma, acting as a kind of psychic shield to protect Sofia from something too awful to face alone. And your job? To earn their trust and unravel just what it is Sofia can't or won't tell you. Every conversation becomes a delicate negotiation. You can't just brute force answers out of these alters. You have to understand them, listen to them. Each has a role to play, a trauma to carry, a part of the timeline they're clinging to. Some of them know things Sofia doesn't. Some know things they're afraid to say out loud. The act of peeling back these layers, slowly and carefully, becomes the emotional core of the game. You're not just solving a murder, you're solving a person. It seems like they did a pretty good job of portraying dissociative identity disorder. DID does come out as a response to childhood trauma. Strong sensations, stress, and trauma-related stimuli do trigger personality switches in real-life cases. So what the game shows isn't exactly far-fetched. You can also tell when a switch occurs if a person in question suddenly goes into a trance-like state or makes a sudden change in posture. So while the game exaggerates by giving each personality different eye colors and hairstyles, a switch can be physically observable. Each alter also acts autonomously and functions independently of one another, and has entirely different memories, so the game is also on point there. Having memory gaps and amnesia when personalities take over is also a thing that real cases experience. So while we aren't exactly clinical experts, it seems like the devs really put a lot of thought into getting the basics of DID right, minus some fictional embellishments. The game treats each identity with care, giving them the space to exist as people, not just plot devices. It feels respectful, it avoids the usual media pitfalls, and it leans into empathy rather than exploitation. But that empathy doesn't make things easier. In fact, it complicates them, because the deeper you go, the harder it gets to draw a clear line between Sofia and her alters. Who knew what? Who did what? Can a fractured mind tell the whole truth? And who is lying? These are the questions that begin to haunt you, not because the game insists on them, but because you do. Because you start caring. You start wondering if you're getting close to the truth or just further into someone else's defenses. In order to find the truth, you do one very simple thing. Ask. The gameplay revolves around giving Sofia and her personalities prompts related to the case or Sofia's personal history. You speak to her through a screen. You observe, you question, you decode, and in that lies the brilliance of this game. You speak to Sofia, or rather you respond to her, by inputting keywords. These are pulled from your observations, the fragments she says aloud, the subtle slips in her language. You're not clicking on dialogue options or following a script. You're actively listening, parsing, and deducing. And when it works, it's electric. When you find a keyword that clicks, it gives you a new piece to the puzzle and you slowly start putting those pieces together. This takes the form of a corkboard of all the topics discussed, threads connecting names, memories, traumas, secrets. It's part detective board, part psychological profile. However, this system isn't perfect. While the keyword system is engaging and immersive, it can take some getting used to. For example, you want to talk about a picture, so you type picture, but the system's like, nuh-uh. So you try adding words to picture to see if that would work. Nope. You eventually type photo. Oh yeah, that's the word we're looking for. And you just kinda sit there feeling sorry for yourself that you didn't figure it out earlier. It feels similar to that feeling of knowing what's wrong with a witness's testimony in Ace Attorney, but you don't know which evidence will correctly convey that. It's a weird friction point. On one hand, it makes sense, you are supposed to think carefully, but on the other hand, there's a moment where the challenge shifts from clever design to unnecessary frustration. While it has its flaws, it really does a good job of making you feel like an investigator trying to put the pieces together. It's engaging, encouraging you to look back at past conversations, checking and double-checking to see if you can find a nugget of information that can open up new conversational pathways. It'll either make you feel like Sherlock Holmes or Charlie trying to figure out who Pepe Sylvia is.
There's no Pepe Sylvia, you gotta be kidding me! I got boxes full of Pepe!
The limited time of 7 days to figure everything out also gives you some urgency to figure out as much as you can before time runs out. Once time does run out, you have to make your choice. Who did it? But let me tell you now, one ending isn't going to satisfy most players. You want to get to the bottom of the mystery after all. Worry not though, as you get a chance to play New Game Plus after each ending, retaining your information so you can dive further and nab another chance to get to the truth. The character design works fairly well. While it's a bit on the nose, it still does a great job of physically distinguishing the different personalities. The UI is clean, functional, and thematic. The 2D art that depicts important story events is also beautifully done. However, it does feel like a little visually samey after a while. There's little in the way of environmental storytelling or visual evolution across playthroughs. Well, outside of that one time one of the personalities put doodles all over Sofia's cell. Technically solid and stylistically appropriate, but ultimately limited in scope and ambition. The voice acting does a commendable job anchoring each alter with nuance and distinctiveness. It's one of the game's stronger immersive elements. But the rest of the soundscape is underwhelming. Music is sparse and forgettable, and ambient audio is practically non-existent. The lack of auditory variety doesn't ruin the experience, but it does make it feel a lot more bare than it should. Sofia in Exchange for Lies delivers an intriguing, story-focused, investigative experience. It left me on the edge of my seat wanting to know what happens next. Sure, the way of getting there was a little lacking, frustrating at times even, but that didn't hinder my thirst for the truth. The devs and writers did a great job of creating a gripping story for Sofia, a story that made me feel for her, empathize with her, but it also made me question if that's part of her plan all along. It made me momentarily forget that the game has flaws in the roughly 20 or so hours that I had with this game. For an indie game, the price may be a little steep at 35 USD, and I can understand having hesitations. But for someone who loves story-focused games, especially of the mystery variety, it's still probably worth a shot. We're giving Sofia in Exchange for Lies a 72. So what about you? What do you think of the game? Are you curious enough to check it out? What are your favorite mystery games? Tell us in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more video game reviews and video game related content. This has been Game 8, and we hope to see you next time.